What if I could show you a way to turn ordinary people into superheroes? Would you be interested in that?
Welcome to the Doctor's Mentor Show. If you believe that medicine is an industry and not a profession, if you enjoy submitting complex reimbursement claims, or you would do another residency just for fun, be advised, you're about to be offended. You should probably leave now.
All this talk about mentoring doctors is ridiculous. I thought doctors learned to do everything better than everyone else the first year of medical school. At least that's the way they act.
If you love assisting patients with vitality breakthroughs, if the right to practice medicine without interference is important, and you want expert tips for practice freedom and profits to support your epic life, welcome aboard and prepare to be blown away. The Doctor's Mentor Show starts now. Here's your host, Dr. Lori Barr.
This is helpful in any leadership role you're in. You can use it to empower people who work with you, your partners, your relationships at home, your patients, people in training. It's a great tool, and it will also help you be a great interviewer. Not only that, you can use it to turn yourself into a hero. Now, if you're interested in turning yourself into a hero, you might want to listen to my other show, the Think and Grow Well show, episode number 31, because that's where I discuss this concept applied specifically to asking yourself the right questions.
Today's topic:
the steps to take to turn ordinary people into superheroes so that they can face their next challenge successfully. Definitely something every mentor needs to know how to do. So what are the 4 steps of turning an ordinary person into a hero in their own mind and then showing them how they can transfer that success to their next challenge? 4 simple things. Remind them of how they were in the past and name a verb, identify for them an action verb that shows them they already have the skill to face the challenge that they're facing now. Number 3, point out to them that they became a hero of that in the past. Next, show them the turning point, help them recognize their hero status and how they've already implemented that in their life. And finally, show them how that same action verb applies to the challenge they're facing now. Those are the 4 simple steps. We're going to step through it with several examples during this episode. So when you're asking these questions to someone else, the real trick is people don't always see themselves as heroes or successful. So the questions you ask and the answers you listen to them give you are going to reveal how they became a hero so that you can show it back to them. Now, you might be wondering, how did I learn this technique? I have a mastermind group that I've facilitated for well over 10 years. We meet weekly by telephone. It's an international group. One thing we've taught ourselves over the years is to listen with our whole being. That's one of the greatest gifts you can give anybody. And to reflect back to the speaker something that they've let you know, either with their words or by their tone, that they may not recognize they're giving you, and see how that resonates with them. So that's where this all came from. So let's say that you are training a resident and you're wanting to show them their success so that they feel better and can do more and go through the next step of their training with confidence. This might be handy if you have first-year residents who are just getting ready to take call, for example. First question has to do with what life is like before they became a hero. So you're going to take them back before the time they had whatever success you're trying to highlight. Now, let's use a different scenario. In the case of you're interviewing somebody on your show or you're interviewing somebody for a job, then the hero part is going to be whatever you're hiring them for or whatever light you're casting them in for your audience. So whatever type of hero you want to turn them into, your first question has to do with what was life like before that. Okay, so the question might go something like this to the resident. So tell me, how did you feel when you graduated from medical school last year? And just listen. Listen to how they tell you they felt. What you'll notice in their description is what kind of a person they are. Are they more visual? Are they more auditory? Are they more a feeling person? And once you have that information, then your other questions can be informed by that information as well, so that they feel more comfortable communicating with you. Once you listen to what life was like, you can ask a question that turns them in the direction of the superhero you want them to recognize they are. If you're looking at the classic Campbell hero cycle, it's what was the call? How did you know that you were the one to become the hero? So in your role as a leader in a healthcare environment, it's usually going to be something like, when did you decide to step up and start doing whatever the actions were that led them to that next step? Or let's say you're interviewing somebody who has survived something traumatic or like saved people from something traumatic. In the face, the question might be something like, in the middle of all this disaster, how did you decide that you would go back and help other people? So for the resident who's about to start taking call, it might be something like, wow, that felt really good to graduate from medical school. I can hear it in your voice and I can see it in your smile when you talk about that experience. Isn't it amazing how much you can grow in the course of a year? And now you're getting ready to graduate into something else, taking call, being even more responsible as a doctor. Doesn't that feel great? So you acknowledge their success in the past, you lead them toward the future that you know they're facing, and you bring some of those feelings of confidence with you as you're laying their story in front of them. You can do this with patients too. And then ask a question about what skills got them to the point of success they've already had. What do you think the number one thing you do well is that got you to be so successful as a first-year radiology resident? So bring them to the now. And they may say something like, oh, I've got great manual dexterity, or I'm good with people, or I learn quickly, or I really know anatomy. Whatever they say, your next statement is going to be something like, that's great, because that skill is one of the skills you're going to really use once you start taking responsibility on call. And you may have some other feelings about taking call. What do you feel about this upcoming responsibility that you're about to assume? Or you can say, how does it feel now to take the next step and be ready to take call this Friday? And here, depending on the rapport you have, they may actually reveal some fear or some confidence. Whatever they give you, you're going to make sure you let them know you've heard the emotion they're expressing. Because once you do that, if there's an underlying emotion, they may reveal that as well. So they may say, I'm feeling pretty good about it. That's great. I'm glad you're feeling good about taking call. I remember how I felt the first night I took call in Galveston as a resident. I was pretty nervous. It was a busy ER, and our call room was right above it. And there were some scary-looking people sometimes around the hospital at night. And it just seemed like a big place, and I seemed like a very small person that night. But after I read a few cases, I got more confident, and by the morning, I felt really good at morning readout. I know you're going to feel the same way after your first night on call. Or it'll be interesting to talk to you Monday and see how you feel after your first night on call. I can't wait to ask you on Monday how you feel on the other side. So question number 3 is really critical, because now you've brought them to the place where they're going to meet themselves and go through their hero struggle. Right in our story here, it's the night on call. Now you want to position them for what it's going to be like on the other side. How much call did you take as a medical student? You might ask. So you get some idea of how frequently they were on call. And they may reveal something you're not expecting. Hey, well, for the first year of medical school when I was taking call, I thought I was going to be a surgeon. So I really was gung-ho about being in the hospital in the busy places as much as possible. So that reveals something that will let them know that the radiology night on call may be even easier than what they've already experienced. Or it may be that they cruised through and they tell you something you're not expecting, like, I never took any call as a medical student. It was a hands-off medical school. Then you know that you might want to prepare them for what life is like in the hospital, which I already set that stage with how I felt my night on call. Again, this next question is going to bring them into the future. And the question is, I'm really looking forward to Monday so I can ask you how it went. You're setting up some anticipation, some excitement in yourself, and that's infectious. Remember, people want energy, especially when they're kind of scared. They want to see confidence. So what you're doing is, as you're having the interchange with the person, remember you're the leader and you're the experienced one. You're the mentor. So you're letting them know that you used to be right where they were, that at one time you were a medical student too. At one time you were a first-year resident too. At one time you didn't have that confidence. At one time you hadn't done that surgical procedure before. And you learned how to do it, you mastered it, and now you're a hero. And they're a hero too. So that's the transfer of messages that's underlying the questions that you're asking and the answers you're getting. So the last question might be something like, let's check the schedule and see where we're going to be together so I can ask you that question. Now let's take an interview example instead. So in this case, let's say you're interviewing someone who has just discovered the cure to Alzheimer's disease. Again, you're going to start with what was life like before you became the hero. And usually in an interview situation, you've looked at their CV, you know where they're from, you know a little bit about their background. And if you're doing it for your show, then you're saying that to your audience. You're introducing them to the audience. So after the introduction, you'll say something like, how did you get interested in Alzheimer's research? And they may tell you an origin story like, oh, my mother had Alzheimer's disease. It affected our whole family. And I decided I would dedicate my research career to finding a cure because no family should have to go through that struggle. So whatever they give you there, you've got what was like life like before. So now we're looking for the turning point again. So the second question is going to be, how many years did you struggle looking for the cure before you found something promising? So they can tell you how long that took. And then you want to help them recognize what the turning point was. When did you know you had something unique? When did you know you'd found the answer? Or how did you know you'd found the answer? Or the question might even be, how did you convince yourself you'd found the answer? So they're at the pinnacle of their success in this part of the story that you're telling to your audience. The question is now, how do they bring that back to their own community, right? That's the end of the hero cycle. The hero comes back to the community and the love is spread. We're acknowledging them as the hero. Let's get how they feel as the hero. Wow. So your life must have changed tremendously now that you've cured Alzheimer's disease. What do you spend your time doing now? Where does somebody go when they've already solved one of the world's great health challenges? What's next? And after they answer that, bring it back to the community. So how can people tap into your solution? How can listeners who have family members who are suffering get relief? What are their next steps for actually tapping into your cure? That's a simple example of how to apply the hero cycle questions in an interview situation.
Your next step.
Your next step is to identify a leadership role that you're in frequently. Maybe it's teaching, maybe it's with a patient, a leadership role you're in frequently in your practice or your business, and to identify heroes and map out questions you can ask them that highlight to them that they're already heroes and how they can transfer whatever it is they did well, how that applies to the next challenge they're facing. I'm Dr. Lori Barr. One idea is all it takes to change your world. See you next time.
Are you stopping at a hospital? Hello? Don't you know that hospitals are one of the sickest places on the planet? Don't touch anything in there and get out as fast as you can.